Welcome everyone and thank you for tuning into the channel, where today we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins and numismatic treasures that can turn an ordinary pocket change item into an extraordinary fortune, and in this episode we are shining the spotlight on one of the most talked about modern coin rarities, the 1987 D. Lincoln 1 cent that has been reported in certain rare and extraordinary circumstances to command values soaring into the multi-million-dollar range, with some unique and dramatic error specimens being rumored or documented in high-end numismatic circles as reaching figures as astonishing as $17 million, a number that at first sounds almost unbelievable until you break down the complex chain of minting mistakes, mechanical anomalies, metallurgical oddities, planchet irregularities, die failures, and the razor-thin survival odds that combine to turn a tiny penny into a jaw-dropping prize, and in this long deep dive we are going to explore the reasons, theories, mechanical processes, and possible rare error combinations that contribute to such astronomical valuations, all in a single uninterrupted flow, where we imagine you sitting back, listening, and immersing yourself in the story of how the smallest coin in U.S. circulation can become a colossal legend of value through the strange and unpredictable world inside the United States Mint, where blank discs of metal clash, jam, misfeed, shatter dies, warp under pressure, misalign under speed, and occasionally create a piece so unique it becomes not only a coin but a relic of American minting history, a testament to the technological imperfections that collectors crave and pay unimaginable sums to own. And because the 1987 D penny is normally a common coin with billions minted, it is exactly this contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary that allows error variance to stand out so dramatically, especially when we talk about ultra-rare combinations of multiple error types happening at once, something that is already extremely unlikely on any coin but becomes almost astronomically improbable when the coin in question is a copper-plated zinc cent from the late 1980s, which at the Denver Mint were produced at high speed using presses calibrated to reduce mistakes, making any surviving extreme error not just unusual but nearly miraculous. And among the possibilities that make a 1987 D cent skyrocket into the realm of extreme wealth are things like double strikes with off-center rotation so large that Lincoln's portrait is distorted and partially missing, or dramatic broad strikes that leave the coin spread out like a pancake without its characteristic rim, or even more spectacular, a multiple strike chain where the coin bounces between dies in unpredictable angles causing phantom images, ghost impressions, and overlapping designs that twist the familiar face of Lincoln into an abstract, surreal composition that collectors chase. Because of its one-of-a-kind nature, and there are also rare wrong planchet errors where the cent is accidentally struck on metal intended for another denomination entirely, such as a dime blank made of cupronickel, a foreign planchet that happened to be inside the hopper during production for international contracts, or a transitional composition error that results in a coin with unexpected weight, sound, and metallic signature, and when these wrong planchet errors combine with additional striking mistakes like clipped planchets, die breaks, or incomplete plating, the value multiplies exponentially, creating the wild price records that make headlines in numismatic auction houses, because collectors are not merely paying for a coin but for a minting phenomenon, a rare anomaly that is frozen in time and physically represents a cascade of mechanical failures occurring in just the right sequence to yield something no mint worker could replicate intentionally. And another major factor that elevates the potential valuation of a 1987 D penny is the presence of major die cracks, cuts, and retained interior die breaks, where the die that stamps the coin fractures under pressure, leaving raised metal on the finished cent in shapes that can resemble continents, lightning bolts, thick blobs, or dramatic missing sections along the rim, and when a cut is enormous or unusually shaped, it transforms the design into something so distinct that the coin effectively becomes a sculptural anomaly, extremely desirable for collectors who focus on die-state varieties. And the Denver Mint dies of the late 1980s occasionally exhibited fatigue due to massive production runs, making such breaks possible but still incredibly rare in spectacular form. And on top of this, the plating issues that plagued copper-plated zinc cents after their introduction in 1982 sometimes resulted in bubbles, splits, and peeling layers of copper that expose raw zinc beneath. And while plating defects alone rarely create million-dollar coins, when combined with double strikes, off-centers, partial collar errors, or broad strikes, the resulting hybrid error can be so visually shocking and technically unprecedented that collectors are willing to part with unimaginable sums to secure a piece that exists as a curiosity even among error coins. And some of these extreme specimens can show what appears to be blistering across Lincoln's coat, mottled textures across the fields of the coin, or cracked plating that interacts unpredictably with overstrikes, causing imagery to appear distorted like a holographic illusion. And this is where the story deepens, because anytime a coin displays multiple unrelated error types simultaneously, experts immediately begin investigating how it could have survived mint quality control, since typical inspection processes remove the most outrageous examples, meaning any specimen that escaped into circulation or was preserved by a mint worker or found in a sealed mint bag must have done so under exceptionally unusual circumstances, effectively adding an aura of mystery and rarity that adds even more value. And speaking of mystery, there are also rumors and occasionally verified cases of mule errors, which occur when the obverse, front, of one coin design is accidentally paired with the reverse, back, die of another denomination or different year. And while no widely accepted and documented 1987 D mule cent is publicly confirmed as reaching the multi-million-dollar level, collectors speculate on the existence of experimental die trials or catastrophic mismatches that could have produced such a piece, and if one ever surfaced, especially if combined with another error type like off-center striking or wrong planchet composition, the price would easily reach the kind of breathtaking figures associated with the $17 million claims. Because mules are the holy grail of mint errors, representing not just mechanical failure but human oversight in die installation, something so rare that only a tiny handful across all denominations have ever been authenticated. And now imagine pairing that with a 1987 D penny, a coin minted in enormous numbers but not known for dramatic die experimentation, making the existence of such a mule almost mythical and therefore explosively valuable. And moving from mule speculation back into confirmed error archetypes, we also have the dramatic off-metal errors where a 1987 D cent could theoretically be struck on leftover bronze planchets from pre-1982 compositions, which would create a heavier cent with the wrong metallic makeup. And although such transitional errors are usually associated with years immediately surrounding composition changes, there are rare instances where stray planchets remain in bins for years, making a 1987 bronze cent theoretically possible and extremely desirable, especially to metallurgical anomaly collectors who pay enormous premiums for coins that contradict expected specifications, because the ability to hold a heavy, unexpected composition from a year in which the mint officially used zinc only adds a layer of intrigue, and the rarity comes not just from the striking error but from the survival odds of such a coin, given that its weight difference should have flagged it at various quality control stages. Yet if it slipped through, it would be a marvel of mint process unpredictability. And on top of composition errors, we also must consider edge-related mistakes such as partial collar strikes where the collar, which forms the rim of the coin, fails to fully encase the planchet during striking, creating a cent with distorted edges, finned rims, or elongated shapes that can look almost like the coin is melting outward. And when you combine partial collar errors with off-center strikes or multiple strikes, the resulting coin can have a stretched or warped appearance that is visually stunning and ultra-rare. And then there are the dramatic misalignment errors where the hammer die or anvil die is not properly aligned, resulting in a coin where one side appears rotated, shifted, or ghosted in ways that make the design seem doubled or mispositioned. And if such a misalignment is extreme enough to distort Lincoln's portrait or shift the memorial building on the reverse while still keeping the coin structurally intact, collectors go wild for it, because extreme misalignments rarely survive intact due to the pressure of the strike often causing the planchet to tear or buckle, meaning the few that do survive become instant treasures. And when discussing the extreme upper valuations like $17 million. Next, 2001 1 cent. Today as we dive once again into the astonishing world of rare coins, unbelievable numismatic discoveries, and the shocking reality that even the smallest, most unassuming coin in your pocket could turn out to be a multi-million-dollar treasure. And today we are focusing on a modern marvel of minting chaos and collector obsession, the extraordinary, mysterious, and potentially record-shattering 2001 Lincoln 1 cent, which under the right combination of mint errors, mechanical failures, planchet defects, striking anomalies, and once-in-a-billion survival circumstances has been connected to rumored valuations climbing as high as $12 million, a figure that at first sounds impossible until you begin to understand the mechanics of the minting process, the rarity of certain error combinations, and the explosive demand among advanced collectors for unique, spectacular, visually dramatic, and technically impossible coins that defy every expectation of what a penny should look like or how it should have been struck. And in this mega deep dive we will explore how a year as ordinary as 2001, with billions of cents produced, can nevertheless give birth to a coin so rare and so extraordinary that its value rivals luxury real estate, high-end art, or experimental prototypes, and how the chaotic environment inside die presses, feeding mechanisms, plating processes, and quality control systems can combine to unleash freak minting misfires that become priceless artifacts in the world of numismatics. And because you asked for a single, uninterrupted paragraph with more than 5,000 words, we're going all in with a long, immersive, free-flowing exploration of how a tiny copper-plated zinc coin from 2001 could realistically become a $12 million treasure. So sit back, imagine yourself scrolling or listening, and let's dive headfirst into the incredible possibilities, starting with the fundamental fact that the 2001 Lincoln cent was produced during an era when the United States Mint had fully shifted to copper-plated zinc cents, which are known for their vulnerability to plating issues, die deterioration, strike inconsistencies, and planchet defects, all of which can lead to a wide spectrum of error types, from subtle anomalies to massive, spectacular disasters inside the striking chamber. And while most 2001 cents are perfectly ordinary, the rarest ones display catastrophic error combinations so improbable that they can be considered unique in all of coinage history, and the value of a unique mint error is essentially whatever the highest bidder is willing to pay, which is why $12 million valuations, while extraordinary, become plausible when we start imagining error combinations that defy every norm and produce a coin that advanced collectors consider a once-in-a-lifetime acquisition, especially if it combines multiple unrelated error types stacked on top of one another in a way that is so visually dramatic, unmistakably authentic, and technically unrepeatable that it becomes the ultimate trophy piece. And among the most valuable error types possible on a 2001 cent are extreme off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned by more than 50%, leaving only part of Lincoln's portrait visible while the rest is blank planchet, a feature that instantly makes a coin rare. And if combined with a second strike, especially one rotated 180 degrees or overlapping the first strike at a bizarre angle, the resulting double strike error could produce warped, stretched, or ghosted images that transform the cent into an abstract, surreal masterpiece of minting misfortune. And the fact that such an error survived quality control is already a miracle, but even more astonishing is the possibility that the coin could also have been afflicted by a partial collar strike, creating a distorted, ring-like fin around the rim or a bulging, misshapen edge, which collectors adore because partial collar strikes often produce unique shapes, and if you layer that with a wrong planchet error, such as being struck on a foreign coin blank or a leftover planchet from another denomination, the value increases exponentially, because wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most desirable in any year. And although 2001 is not known for widespread wrong planchet anomalies, the existence of foreign planchets inside U.S. Mint facilities is well documented, especially when the Mint was producing contract coinage for other countries. And if even one such planchet found its way into the feeding mechanism during 2001 Lincoln cent production, the resulting wrong planchet strike would be a major prize. And if that same planchet then suffered multiple strikes, die cracks, broad strikes, or misalignments, it would be the kind of numismatic legend capable of fetching millions. And beyond wrong planchets, we also have the possibility of a mule error, which occurs when the obverse of one design is paired with the reverse of another, something so rare that only a handful of confirmed mule coins exist in all U.S. history. And while no publicly confirmed 2001 mule cent has surfaced, the Mint environment always leaves room for theoretical possibilities, especially if a misinstalled die or misrouted die pair accidentally struck a handful of coins before being discovered. And if a 2001 cent mule ever emerged, say, a Lincoln obverse paired with a Roosevelt dime reverse, or the cent reverse paired with a die from a special strike production, it would instantly become one of the most valuable coins ever known. and in the right condition, especially paired with additional errors, such a coin could indeed command 8-figure prices, because mule errors occupy the highest tier of minting anomalies, representing massive human error rather than minor mechanical misalignment. And collectors pay premium prices for anything that can be proven to result from improper die pairing. And moving on to another category of high-value errors, die caps remain one of the most visually stunning and mechanically fascinating phenomena inside the minting process, occurring when a struck coin sticks to the hammer die and continues receiving multiple successive strikes, gradually shaping the coin into a tall, cup-like structure that stretches upward, sometimes resembling a thimble or metal tulip. And if a 2001 cent were to become a die cap, especially one with dozens of strikes causing extreme stretching, warping, thinning, and ghosted design impressions, it would already be a valuable piece worth thousands or more. But now imagine that this die cap was created on the wrong composition, or also shows double dies on the inside, or exhibits dramatic cracks, or eventually struck another planchet beneath it, creating a saddle-like merged piece, one of the rarest categories of mint errors in existence. And suddenly we enter the realm of multi-million-dollar potential, because such combinations are nearly impossible to exist, and nearly impossible to survive intact outside the mint, and collectors understand that the odds of encountering such a super error are astronomical, perhaps 1 in billions, making any verified example a priceless treasure. And another major category of value-boosting errors are die breaks, cuds, and shattered dies, all of which were entirely possible in 2001 due to the long die lifespans and the zinc planchets that introduced unusual stress on striking equipment, and a cud forms when a piece of the die chips off, leaving a large, raised blob of metal on the finished coin, often merging with design elements or obliterating portions of the rim. And cuds are highly collectible, but giant cuds, especially those covering significant portions of the coin, are extremely rare, and when combined with double dies, broad strikes, or off-center misstrikes, they create breathtaking rarities worthy of 6- or 7-figure valuations. But our quest for $12 million involves stacking even more improbable anomalies together, such as a massive cud combined with a wrong planchet combined with a double strike combined with a struck-through error, because struck-through errors create some of the most dramatic and visually shocking effects in numismatics, especially when a large piece of foreign material, cloth, wire, metal shavings, grease, or even fragments of another coin, was trapped on the planchet during striking, leaving missing design areas, deep depressions, ridges, or bizarre textures that resemble extraterrestrial landscapes. And a dramatic struck-through event can turn even a normal cent into a valuable collectible. But when such an event overlaps a double die, an off-center second strike, or a wrong planchet strike, the value skyrockets. And the most extreme struck-through errors, such as those involving full washers, bolts, or large metal parts, are so rare that only a handful are known. And if any such event occurred on a 2001 cent along with additional errors, it would easily become $1 million piece or more, especially if it remained uncirculated and was discovered soon after minting, because pristine error coins usually command significantly higher prices. And another factor contributing to potential $12 million valuations is the presence of multi-strike events in sequence, such as when a cent is struck once normally, then bounces or shifts before receiving a second strike at an angle, then partially overlaps another coin, producing a flip-over double strike or a flip-over collar strike. And flip-over errors often produce 2 reversed or inverted impressions, creating visually stunning combinations of backwards lettering or mirror design fragments. Next, 1984 1-cent coin, today, where we dive deep into the incredible world of rare coins, numismatic mysteries, and the unbelievable stories behind tiny pieces of metal that transform from everyday pocket change into multi-million-dollar treasures. And in this episode we are going all in on one of the most astonishing and talked about error coins in modern American numismatics, the legendary 1984 Lincoln 1 cent that in certain extreme, extraordinary, and almost mythically rare error configurations has been associated with valuations rumored or estimated as high as $15 million. And while a normal 1984 penny is worth just a cent, the rarest error specimens from this year can become the holy grail of collecting, because the 1984 cent sits at a unique moment in minting history, where the United States Mint was still adjusting to the relatively new copper-plated zinc composition introduced a couple years earlier, which created a variety of unusual problems in the Presses, the plating process, the die maintenance cycle, and the quality control procedures, all of which open the door to some of the most dramatic and visually shocking error types ever documented on modern scents. And as we embark on this mega deep dive, all presented in one continuous flowing paragraph so you can use it as a script or a long-form monologue, we are going to explore how mechanical chaos, planchet defects, die deterioration, misalignments, struck-through events, off-center misstrikes, wrong planchet anomalies, extreme doubling, die cap mishaps, and freak one-in-a-billion combinations of several errors happening simultaneously can turn an ordinary 1984 scent into a multi-million-dollar marvel of minting misfortune. And we begin with the most famous and widely recognized error associated with the 1984 scent, the dramatic double-deer error, in which Lincoln's ear on the obverse appears to have an extra, fully formed duplicate lobe beneath the main ear, a result of a hubbing misalignment that created a strong doubled image. And although this particular variety is collectible and valuable on its own, it typically sells for hundreds or thousands, not millions. But the reason it matters in our journey to understanding the $15 million figure is because it symbolizes the environment of the 1984 minting operations, which were susceptible to hub doubling due to factors like die fatigue, incorrect die alignment during hubbing, and the transitionary challenges the mint had with steel tools wearing faster due to harder zinc planchets beneath the copper plating. And if a standard double-deer penny is already considered significant, imagine what happens when doubling appears in combination with one or more of the most extreme error types imaginable, such as a catastrophic off-center strike where the design is displaced by 60% or more, leaving part of Lincoln's face floating near the edge or sliced off completely, or a broad strike where the collar fails and the coin expands outward into a flattened oval shape without a proper rim, or even more dramatic, a broad strike combined with a double strike that distorts the familiar portrait into overlapping, surreal layers that make the scent look like a piece of abstract art rather than a minted coin. And collectors go absolutely wild for pieces where multiple errors appear stacked together, because each additional error type exponentially increases rarity, demand, and value. And now, imagine a 1984 scent with doubled features, a violent off-center misstrike, a broad strike, and perhaps even a wrong planchet anomaly where the scent was accidentally struck on a foreign coin blank intended for another country's contract coinage or struck on a leftover copper blank from pre-1982 minting runs, creating a much heavier bronze 1984 penny that absolutely should not exist and would be instantly recognized as an impossible miracle of minting history. And the existence of any such coin would cause collectors to bid against each other at unprecedented levels because transitional wrong planchet errors are among the rarest in all of numismatics, and when combined with major double die features or catastrophic striking issues, the price can skyrocket into unheard of ranges. And while $15 million is a staggering amount, it becomes understandable when you consider that the rarest error coins in history, particularly unique mules, coins struck with mismatched designs, such as a cent obverse paired with a dime reverse, have entered the realm of essentially priceless artifacts. And although no publicly confirmed 1984 mule cent has been authenticated to date, collectors often speculate that if one ever surfaced, especially if struck on a wrong planchet or with extreme doubling, its value would shatter records. And this is where the immense hypothetical valuations come from, because the possibility of a unique, one-of-one mint error of unimaginable complexity existing somewhere, perhaps in a private estate, an old jar, or tucked away in a forgotten mint bag, drives the belief that a 1984 cent could indeed become a $15 million treasure. And the mechanics behind such spectacular errors are a fascinating journey on their own, because inside the coining chamber, planchets are rushed into position at incredible speeds, and if one slides in sideways, gets pinned between dies, or rebounds after an initial strike, it can receive multiple impressions in unpredictable angles, leaving overlapping dates, distorted lettering, doubled or tripled profiles, drifting design fragments, or crescent-shaped strikes from misaligned jaws of the press. And when this chaotic environment interacts with defective planchets, a huge issue in the early zinc years, you get plating blisters, exposed zinc craters, peeling copper layers, and cracked surfaces that dramatically alter the coin's appearance. And while minor plating bubbles are common, massive plating disruptions combined with overstrikes can look like the coin is erupting from within, creating visual anomalies so stunning that advanced collectors will pay astronomical premiums for them, especially if the error is exceptionally dramatic, unique, and clearly the product of an unpredictable cascade of minting failures. And then there are die cracks and retained cuds, where the die itself fractures and transfers huge raised blobs of metal onto the finished coin, leaving portions of the rim, fields, or Lincoln's portrait buried under thick metal growths. And these errors are more common in high-volume years like the 1980s because dies were pushed hard, but enormous cuds or dramatic die shatters remain incredibly rare and highly valuable, and when paired with doubled features or off-center strikes, they become breathtaking rarities that can fetch enormous prices. And the potential for a $15 million coin increases significantly when considering multi-error chains, such as a 1984 cent that is first struck normally, then becomes lodged in the die and struck again as a die cap, forming a metal cup shape with the design stretching upward in a deformed funnel-like shell, and if that die cap then dislodges and receives a third strike aligned at a warped angle or on top of another planchet, the resulting object becomes a freak of minting physics, the kind of numismatic treasure that collectors dream about but rarely ever see, and such combinations are so improbable that even seasoned experts may go their entire careers without handling one, and this impossibility is exactly why values inflate to the level of mythic expectation, because collectors understand the math behind minting anomalies. Billions of coins are minted each year, but only a tiny fraction survive quality control with major errors, an even smaller fraction survive circulation without damage, and almost none display multiple unrelated error types stacked together in visually spectacular ways, making any existing example effectively priceless. And if one of these rarest specimens happens to come from a year with a famous collector base like 1984, especially one tied to a well-known double die variety, demand skyrockets even further, and then we consider struck-through errors, where lint, steel shavings, washers, pieces of wire, grease, or even fragments of another coin become trapped between the die and planchet at the moment of striking, imprinting unexpected textures, missing design features, hollowed depressions, straight edge lines, or bizarre shapes that look like secret symbols or deliberate engravings. And when such struck-through events occur in combination with doubling or off-center strikes, the coin becomes an artistic and mechanical mystery that advanced collectors find irresistible. And the more unusual the struck object, the higher the value, especially if it creates a dramatic visual that is instantly recognizable as unique, and rarity is always the fuel that drives numismatic prices into record-breaking ranges. So when we imagine a perfect storm of minting chaos, such as a 1984 double-deer penny struck off-center on the wrong planchet with a huge die cut on the reverse, struck through a piece of steel wire, followed by a partial collar strike that expands the rim into a distorted flared shape, you begin to see why collectors would battle fiercely to own it. Because a coin with that many simultaneous anomalies is not just rare. It is likely the only one ever created, and uniqueness is the single greatest driver of multi-million-dollar valuations. And when such a coin also comes from a year with an existing famous variety, the desirability compounds even further. Last, 1993 D1 cent coin, today on our channel, where we dive deep into the most fascinating, surprising, and sometimes downright unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins and numismatic treasures. And today we're exploring a piece that has sent shockwaves through collectors and enthusiasts alike. A coin so unexpectedly valuable that it sounds like something straight out of a myth or a tall tale whispered among coin dealers at conventions, yet the 1993 D1 cent, yes, the seemingly ordinary modern Lincoln penny minted in Denver, has gained extraordinary attention because of a very specific and highly speculated example rumored to have fetched an astounding $11 million due to an unusual and extremely rare combination of mint errors and production anomalies. And although the vast majority of 1993 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, and almost all examples are common, mundane, and produced in the billions, the mysterious high-value specimen attributed with multiple overlapping mint errors invites us to explore how and why certain mistakes, when aligned in just the right way, can transform a coin from pocket change into a once-in-a-generation numismatic phenomenon. Because errors like off-center strikes, double dies, broad strikes, transitional planchet mistakes, misaligned dies, die cracks, cut breaks, clipped planchets, wrong metal strikes, and improper annealing aren't just curiosities but crucial elements that can turn a simple copper-plated zinc cent into something collectors are willing to compete fiercely for, especially when those errors occur not singly but layered upon one another, creating a unique piece that is literally impossible to replicate and thus becomes a singular artifact. And so in this long and immersive exploration we'll dive into every detail surrounding the hype, the speculation, the recognized types of mint errors that might theoretically combine to yield such a dramatic price, the historic precedents for coins that skyrocketed in value because of unusual production conditions, the reasons rarity and demand collide to produce astronomical valuations, and the micro-level possibilities that might exist in a coin that appears deceptively ordinary at first glance, because while the idea of an $11 million modern penny sounds outrageous, the world of numismatics is full of extreme outliers that have stunned experts before, such as the 1943 copper cent, the 1955 double die, the 1969 double die, or even transitional errors like wrong planchet strikes which have consistently fetched hundreds of thousands of dollars when authenticated, and imagining a scenario where multiple major errors converge on a single 1993 cent allows us to understand what makes error coins valuable in the first place. Beginning with the sheer improbability of certain mistakes occurring in a modern minting environment where precision, automation, and quality control are far more advanced than they were generations ago, because in the 1990s the United States Mint had already modernized considerably and significant errors were much rarer than in earlier decades, and a coin emerging from this period with multiple major errors would stand out even more dramatically than, say, a mistake from the early 20th century when looser tolerances allowed more anomalies to slip through, and imagine, for example, a 1993 penny struck on a bronze planchet leftover from previous decades, even though 1982 marked the shift from copper alloy to copper-plated zinc, yet on rare occasions transitional errors have occurred when leftover discs from an earlier composition accidentally made their way into production lines, and because a bronze planchet weighs more, rings differently, and ages differently, such a coin would immediately attract interest. But imagine that same coin also exhibiting a dramatic double die obverse, where the lettering of Liberty, the date, or the profile of Lincoln shows clear, bold doubling visible without magnification, a phenomenon caused when a die is improperly hubbed and produces a distinctive, unmistakable duplication of image elements, and if this doubling were particularly extreme, similar to the famous 1955 or 1969 double dies, it would elevate the coin from interesting to extraordinary. But let's imagine further that the die used to strike this coin also developed a massive interior die crack or a die cut near the rim, creating raised, misshapen metal within the fields or obliterating part of the design, producing a visual effect that makes the coin distinctly identifiable even among errors. And now suppose the strike itself was misaligned, perhaps off-center by a notable percentage, with a portion of the design shifted toward the rim, creating that crescent-shaped blank arc collectors recognize as an off-center error. And if all these anomalies coexisted on a single specimen, the wrong planchet, the double die, a dramatic die break, and an off-center strike, the coin's uniqueness would be indisputable, because error coins are like fingerprints, no two are alike, and when several severe mistakes occur consecutively, the odds of another identical specimen existing drop to practically zero, and rarity is one of the main drivers of astronomical value in numismatics. But beyond rarity is the narrative, the story a coin carries, because collectors aren't just purchasing metal, they're purchasing history, mystery, and the thrill of knowing they possess something no one else on Earth has, and in the case of a 1993 cent, a year and mint mark that most people overlook completely, the idea of discovering a coin that defies every expectation becomes even more compelling. And now let's dive deeper into why each type of error affects value, starting with wrong planchet strikes, which are among the most coveted and valuable of all mint mistakes because they fundamentally alter the coin's nature, changing its weight, metallic makeup, and visual characteristics. And transitional errors are even more prized, particularly when they relate to shifts in national minting policies, such as the switch from copper to zinc cents, nickel to clad coinage, or silver to copper nickel. So a 1993 penny struck on a leftover pre-1982 bronze planchet would stand out immediately in scale and appearance. And next comes die doubling, which is not the same as machine doubling. Machine doubling is flat, shelf-like, and relatively common, while true hub doubling creates thick, rounded, dramatic separations in design elements, and collectors pay enormous premiums for bold double dies, especially when the doubling affects digits, profile details, or inscriptions like "In God We Trust," and then we consider die cracks and cuds, where pieces of the die either fracture internally or break off entirely, causing raised lines or large, blob-like distortions on the struck coin. And when these are prominent and easily visible, they can add significant value, particularly when combined with other errors, and off-center errors occur when the planchet is not properly centered between the dies, causing part of the design to be missing, but collectors prefer off-center strikes that still show the full date and mint mark, because without them authentication becomes more challenging and the historical identity of the coin is partially lost. So the most desirable off-center pieces have a dramatic shift yet preserve all essential identifying details, and now imagine combining all of this with improper annealing or plating issues, such as a coin that shows patchy coloration, missing copper plating that exposes the zinc core, or severe toning anomalies resulting from incorrect metal preparation, and while such plating errors are more common individually, they become far more valuable when appearing alongside major die-related mistakes. And then we could add a broad strike error, where the retaining collar fails to hold the planchet in place during striking, causing the coin to spread outward and lack the normal raised rim, giving it a wider, flatter appearance that adds yet another distinctive physical trait that sets the coin apart. And now consider the role of provenance, because when a remarkable error coin is authenticated and gains fame, especially through a high-profile sale, media coverage, or expert examination, its story becomes part of the collector market's mythology, and much like the notoriety surrounding coins such as the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the 1804 silver dollar, publicity alone can magnify interest, fueling demand and pushing valuations even higher, and a hypothetical 1993 cent containing such an incredible cluster of errors could easily become a numismatic sensation, not just for the technical oddities but for the social fascination it would inspire, with collectors arguing about how such a coin could have escaped modern mint scrutiny, speculating about the production environment that allowed multiple catastrophic mistakes to align, and debating whether the mint's automated systems glitched, whether a stray planchet from an earlier decade slipped into a bin unnoticed, whether the dies were improperly hubbed before installation, or whether an unexpected mechanical failure caused a misalignment during striking. And imagining all these factors converging on a single small copper-plated disc produces a sense of wonder that drives value as much as rarity itself. And we can also consider the psychological and economic principles behind ultra-rare collectibles.